Ольга.
Ну все, даже уже мы начали запись.
Мгм.
Собственно, okay. So, dear colleagues, it's nice to see you today, and we are very pleasant to welcome today our presenter, Jadwiga Siniavskaya. And I was so lucky to be the how to say, leader of the dissertation committee of Jadwiga this June, and where Jadwiga successfully has defended her PhD thesis. And since that time, we were thinking about making this joint seminar. So we are very happy to welcome Jadwiga Siniavskaya today from the Laboratory for Social and Cognitive Informatics from High School of Economics, St. Petersburg. So now I think I will give the floor to you, Jadwiga, please. I think you can make the full presentation. Site share. Oh, it was fine. Just I think Jadwiga will come. So let's wait a little bit.
Such instability in connection. So again, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting, and especially as Daria Vasilyevna said, I'm really happy to attend because both Ivan Alexandrovich and Daria Vasilyevna just contributed to and provided me with very helpful and good suggestions how to make this work more, make it better. So today I'm gonna present the part of my PhD thesis, which mainly so this of that which is mainly considers some social networking analysis aspect. And the topic is studying structural social capital in urban networks in relation to behavior and communication social media. And just briefly take credit to my colleagues because it was not only my individual project, but also collective project with the colleagues from my lab. And I'm really grateful for Alessia Koltsova, Alexander Koshnev, and our Yuri Rykov, and our Reinhold Kligel, who was our supervisor from Germany. He also provided us with many ideas how to deal with this data. So generally, just to say a few words about the motivation to study social capital in relation to online communication. I think many people know about this debate concerning the role of internet and further the role of social media. Okay. Just to continue, can you?
Yeah, we can see. But so, probably you can open the presentation in a full screen.
I'll try, but okay, let's try. I hope that.
You're afraid that?
Yeah. So now it is okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, just list for. Yeah. So just to repeat that, the general motivation was that there is a huge debate about the role of online communication, internet, and further social media in a way how they influence social ties development among people. And there is a very powerful argument in early studies that internet leads to using internet leads to social isolation. But further research showed that actually it is not like this, and they observe that actually active participation in online communication, in contrast, leads to perception of higher social capital among users, and this was also shown in regard to social media. Then they were studied. Okay, guys, are you here? Because I'm afraid whether I don't see.
Sure, yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
because I'm afraid that I will be presenting, but disconnect, like being disconnected.
Okay, we can make you some signs from time to time.
Yeah. Oops, how to return.
But now we can see the first slide.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm afraid if you don't mind, let me show this in this form, because I'm afraid that I can, I can share the full screen. Okay, yeah. So in relation to social media communication, it was also disproved, this isolation argument, and then scholars started to look to more specific practices which users involved, communication practices which users involved online, or looking at their expected gratifications or goals users use social media. So all these things mainly more or less consistently show that actually online involvement, online communication is more like, it is more like users are gratified by using social media. In our study, we were interested in looking not only to this part, their users are motivated, they're actively involved, and how it leads to their social ties development, but also they consider some barriers, communication barriers, which may be faced during online communication. And specifically, what is really relevant in regard to social media communication is the privacy barriers, because this online setting is not free for some privacy risks, and studies show that users anticipated such risks, and just to relate to the privacy literature and computer communication literature, we find also a huge debate about how users form their online activity, privacy behavior activity. And it was shown that actually there is the users try to find balance between some gratifications they expect from social activity and avoiding some privacy risks. But nobody to date has studied, like there is just two studies who studied this question, how this balancing, how this online communication patterns actually relate to social capital. Yeah, so that was our motivation to study this question and contribution at the same time. And let's in computer communication studies, actually then scholars want to assess something related to social embeddedness or social integration or social activity outcomes of users. They usually use term social capital. And we also follow this approach, and also wanted to study social capital, but it turns out that actually, and then we started to look more deeper in the literature, in the sociological literature, in the social psychological literature. It turns out that actually social capital is turned out to be a really complex term, and it is more multidimensional than it is usually studied in communication studies and communication works. And we found out that actually they can access social capital on the collective level, on the society level, or on the individual level. They can look at the local social ties, or like look at the ego network ties, or it could be networks of within different communities. Also, social capital can be conceptualized as a resource, like as amount of resources, or in contrast, as a net by using some networks measures and features. So, and from that stems that we can also use different methodology like self-reported or observational features to assess social capital. So is it okay? Can you see me, hear me? Yeah.
Actually, some participants are saying that they have just black screen without presentation, but I do see your presentation. I don't have any problems. So probably let us just try to open it again. Jadwiga disappeared. Yeah, today we have some problems. We have two people, Dmitry and also Vladimir and Violetta, saying that no, I'm actually not the organizer. I'm not the organizer. Okay. We have another ANR-Lab organizer. I'm just a participant. So Jadwiga. So dear colleagues, yeah, we have two Zooms.
I'm so sorry about that. I don't know how to fix it right now. Yeah, so
so let us just ask if everybody can see the presentation right now. Violetta, Vladimir, and Dmitry, do you see the presentation? Did you see the presentation? It disappeared. Jadwiga, actually, we can make the following. Probably you can send the presentation and
oh yeah,
somebody, Alina, I hope for your help so that you will just open the presentation and show it, and you will just make comments by the voice.
Yeah, it will be really helpful. Thanks. Yeah, second. I can send it here in Zoom.
Yeah, sure. You can send it just straight to Alina, to ANR-Lab HSE, which is not me, because I am in a hospital with my son, and he might wake up. He's actually supposed to wake up. So I'm afraid I will not be. So,
but I don't see. So somebody would share, or
yeah, you just need to tell that please next slide, and Alina will switch them.
Yeah, but I don't see any sharing right now. Should I?
No. I'm. You're supposed to say that you will. So that next slide, please, and then. So you don't see the slide.
Yes. No.
Okay. We
Oh,
do.
is it only?
Is
it only me?
No, we do see your slides.
Okay. Okay, let's try.
Let's try again. How is it now? So now we see the presentation opened in PowerPoint, and there are series of slides, and we need just to make a slideshow. So do you see it? Jadwiga, can you see something now? Mhm.
Okay, dear all, I'm here from my phone, so I can. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
So I don't wanna, to give up and try to continue like this. So moving to it's like starting from the very motivation to study online social capital in relation to online communication. Yeah. Let's slide 3, please. So no. Next one, please. Yeah. So we know that there was huge debate regarding the role of new communication technology and internet in a way how people connect to each other, how we develop a social ties, and the early studies the like social isolation argument were developed and proposed that actually internet negatively influence social capital and because people like isolate to each other and just communicate, like do not like just sit behind their computers and do not communicate to each other, but it is quite quickly started, like it was shown quickly that actually in contrast it is not true, and especially in regarding to social media communication further they see that actually people foster their social ties more effectively, and then the compared users and non-users, actually users provided users were possessed more developed and more diverse social networks. Next slide, please. And it was shown more in more details when scholars start to look at what people do on social media and why they use them, and also mostly consistently it was shown the positive effect of online communication on different aspects related to social activity and to well-being too. Next slide, please. And in our research, we were interested not only in that question, how users' motivation to use social media and their online engagement with social communication practices, how it's related to social ties development, but also they looked at some barriers, communication barriers, which may hamper this process of social ties development. And in context of online media communication, the obvious barrier, as we know about this type of online setting, that it is not free from different privacy risks, and users anticipate this risk and may also develop some strategies to avoid communication or build it in a way how which could be hinder the accumulation of some diverse social ties outside the primarily social communities, or like somehow influence the process of social ties development. So that was our main interest in this study.
And yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, it was also considered the long-lasting debate from privacy literature. Maybe I wouldn't stop here much here, just to say that also decades of studies, like 2 decades of studies, show that yeah, users actually then they consider some privacy risks. They actually think not only about this risk, but also about the social gratifications, why they use social media, and they try to balance these things. Yeah, but in this branch of studies, there was no assessment of how this balancing thing influence social capital on the way how users develop their social ties. So that was our interest and our contribution, that they relate these two mechanisms of social ties formation during like via online communication in one model. In next slide, please. Yeah, and just yeah, then they started to read the literature and try to conceptualize this yeah, this like communication outcomes, how they can look like. They found out that social capital term is oftenly used in computer-mediated communication studies to consider the amount of resources which users perceive or anticipate and get through communication with other people. But then they started to delve into this concept. They realized that actually in sociology and in social, yeah, mainly in sociology, this term turns out to be really much more complex and having like multi-dimensional that social capital is a multidimensional concept, and also it is assessed on different levels, on the society levels, on the individual levels. It is done with a focus on different things. For example, it is measured how much resources people perceive, which they can assess through social networks with other people, or it is focused from social networking analysis. So many different things are assessed, then social capital terms is mentioned. Next slide, please. So in our study, they actually applied, so we first assessed what is important. We're interested in assessing social capital in individual level, and they used integrative definition proposed by Nan-Lin. Next slide, please. You can see that here, yeah, I draw some okay, so I marked different elements of this definition to point out that actually social capital is a like complex mix of elements which could be assessed. So first, it has component of an investment into relationship, which lead to that person get access to some resources, and resources are embedded in social structure. So they can see that actually, yeah, to what we can grasp from this definition, that social capital is nurtured through communication. Yeah, so communication aspect should be assessed when we talk about the social capital. So they can also assess some things related to resources and to some structural component here is also present. Yeah, so the quote this definition and try to to evaluate social capital in interrelationship of this element. Next slide, please. Yeah, so as I said, what is interesting in our approach to social might be interested to in our approach to social capital investigation is that, as I said, we tested different mechanisms which might explain social capital, like how much, like explain difference between users in possessing social capital, which is their own activity and privacy barriers. And what also could be interested from the position of social networking analysis, that the conceptual how we conceptualize social capital, network structural social capital. So as we might know, so usually social capital, structural social capital is assessed on the level of ego networks or within some local or not so wide online communities. But in our study, they tried to capture and trace how people communicate online and how it is related with their social ties development inside some offline macro social network. And in our case it was urban network, because from classical studies we know that this city level and like this social capital is rooted inside some meaningful, like geographically located areas. So that's why they were interested in city level social capital. So what we did, they analyzed online population of one Russian city based on the data from social media VKontakte, and they built a network of relationship between users from this city and calculated the network position of each citizens, which we attributed to this city, and evaluate their structural position within this city network. Could you please return a sec? Yeah, and just to say that the from this like population, we also got some sample and then make a survey. I touch this thing more in more details just later on. Then I will describe the methodology. But just to say right now that they combined two approaches to assessing social capital: the structural approach and this self-reported related to users' own perception of resourcefulness of their social lives. Next slide, please. So just to conclude this big part about the motivation and the theoretical ground of our model, here is our integrative model, and you can see that, as I said, it includes the component marked by blue color, this mechanism related to the users' motivation and their activity, social activity regarding their network, and below by green color, it is marked these communication barriers such as users' concerns which we anticipate regarding online communication, privacy protective behavior, which may stem from it, and they tested how these two mechanisms relate to different social capital dimensions, yeah, perceived and structural one. Could you please switch to? So here, how the actually collected data and how the process it. Yeah. So first of all, as I said, the got the data from the VKontakte social media from people who resided in a particular city, Vologda, and the number of residents were, as we estimated, were around 300,000. From that, we first built the graph of reciprocal friendship ties. So it was undirected network, because in VKontakte it is not out. So the friendship is a mutual thing, yeah, and that's why if you connect to somebody, he or she also connects to you. So from the build this network, city network, and applied some social networking analysis and calculated different network features, from which they approximated and tried to approximate different to say, like, the qualities of structural position of a user inside the city network, and I'll describe them just in a couple of slides. But generally, it assess, as I said, the to what extent user is integrated inside the city network, and how central he or she is. That was one line. And in parallel, they also sampled from this online population, sampled users which were surveyed, and they asked them about different aspects, how they use social media VKontakte, what they think about privacy risks, how they are concerned about them, how they assess their social capital, so their own perception. And they also complemented that self-reported data by the online traces from their accounts about how they protect their VKontakte accounts, whether they apply some privacy settings to protect their accounts. And after that, they match this observational network data with self-reported, and it was resulted in a sample of 369 people for whom we have this both observational and self-reported data, so merged data. Next slide, please. So here, just to show you the characteristics of this Vologda friendship graph, just to say that they then they got it, they also tried to assess to what extent this network differ from any other empirical evidence about other city networks, and it turns out that it's more or less looks not like it could like it could be treated as so represent some, yeah, they see that this Koveeva and Gurin work assessed the network of Ijevsk, and it is not so. So our network is not so deviant from theirs. So we try to to think about the representativity of this network. So included that we can say it is not like deviant, like so much deviant from others. Next slide, please. Yeah, how they measured our constructs. So as I said, we had social networking analysis metrics to evaluate some structural position of users in city network, and it was degree, betweenness, closeness, eigenvector, centralities, and transitivity metric. Also some self-reported data via survey they evaluated by using some well-established and they adopted some existing skills from other studies to evaluate all self-reported constructs. As I said, we got some digital traces about privacy protective behavior, and they construct an index from different aspects how users apply some settings. And we had some important controls, which is time in VK. It means how much time, so for how long users already is registered, has been registered in Contacte. And we try to capture this preferential attachment effect, which is widely faced in the deal with networks, and we know that social ties also developed in times, yeah, and rich get richer, so they try also to account for this effect, and also the control for some features related to well-being, also established that social capital and well-being are related, and they decided to also account for that. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just to say more about the structural mechanism which we try to capture in networks, so in our city network. So also well-known things about two main mechanisms named network closure and structural holes. So they actually were interested in most like basic things, which is related to how users have access, so how they integrated and embedded inside tightly knit communities, or do they, in contrast, do they have access to some new information outside their primary communities? So that's why, next slide, please. Yeah, so the as I also no please so as I also introduced already what features we use, so degree, betweenness, eigenvector, closeness, so that was mainly for assessing different shades of brokerage, yeah, so some bridging abilities, to what extent user can divide different unrelated groups in network. Also some qualities related to the reachability of other people, so to what extent person can mobilize resources if he or she need through assessing ties with other people. And finally, they try to, as I said, yeah, evaluate some disclosure thing by using like which which relates to embeddedness of a user in the network, with closure, and we used some local clustering coefficient to evaluate this transitivity. Next slide, please. So here, just the representation of these metrics in a graphical form. So I think we're familiar with that, just to illustrate. Next slide, please. Yeah, so actually so moving to the results finally. What we found out, first of all, so when we started to work with different network metrics, it turns out that despite they were created to evaluate different network qualities, it turns out that in our particular case, they were quite strictly correlated. And they see that some of these measures were extremely correlated, and they actually excluded one because they just mirror each other. But actually, then I started to look at the empirical evidence. I found out that actually it is not only our case, and in other studies it also pointed out that between the second vector are strongly related to simple degree metric, and this is what we also found out. So what was meant for us? So when we realized that it is like this, we decided to produce some index assessment of to reduce the размерность, so size, reduce the size, so the number of our metrics, and create one integrated score, which consisted from degree between the second vector, so some composite score, which was treated as in model as a proxy for ability of individual to reach others and bridging abilities. And in contrast, as how we expected, transitivity turns out to be unrelated. So transitivity actually measures something different, and was used as a proxy of embeddedness of individual and having a cohesive network. So just maybe I forgot to say that, not all metrics which we used were global. Degree and transitivity were local. They were assessed on the fraction of ego network of users which he or she had inside all of them. So to conclude, they used so they treated structural social capital as degree-related social capital and transitivity, because they found out that it's also has such structure. So using PCA analysis and factor analysis, so this is how they use them in the model. Next slide, please. So, and finally about the results, as I said at the very beginning, they were interested how different conceptualization of social capital corresponds to each other. How network conceptualization relate to users' own perception of their access to the resources. And we found big positive correlation between bonding social capital and transitivity, which seems logical, and negative correlation with degree. So negative correlation between transitivity, bonding and degree related social capital. And what we also found out that even if they not so related as we expected, so they expected that actually network social capital, structural social capital would predict users' perception, right? So from the theory, they expect that there is some network position which converted to some specific resources, but we found out that no, it's not so strictly related, but it related through other factors, which I'll show right now. Next slide, please. Next slide. I don't know. Is it? Can you see it? I mean, is it not very small?
If you're on a computer, it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I hope. So I'll comment anyway on the results. So if you remember the initial scheme, yeah, theoretical model, it's actually mirrors this scheme, yeah, because we tested this model, but it is a little bit more, it has more like factors. But let me comment one by one. So as we expected, and as I said, yeah, they had two mechanisms for social capital formation. So first, about users' motivation and their social like connectivity behavior, how they communicate with others. And here they see that actually all these things were confirmed. Those users who are more interested in developing their social ties, they are more engaged in some such activity of maintaining their social ties, and it is converted to the perception of higher resources, yeah, bridging and bonding ones. So, but not only to the perception, they see that this some motivation, something that just corresponds to users' intention, and they're like mostly about the personality trait, maybe, yeah. So this leads not only to higher perception of social capital, but to it is an indicator of more central position in CityNet. Yeah, so those who are more concerned about their social ties, there seems to be more central. But it is not related, as we can see, it's not related to the transitivity. So it means that it is also mostly about, yeah, also bridging social capital, not bonding. What about barriers? We can see that actually privacy concerns, in contrast to what was expected, it not hinder the social capital accumulation, but even has positive relationship to degree social capital, and slightly positive to privacy protective behavior, which means that those who are concerned by privacy, they're slightly more engaged in privacy protection, but further, it is not converted to some barriers, communication barriers, so it is not influenced the user's position in a city network. So in privacy literature, actually, there was not such a result. And quite interesting that we also can see the mediation between privacy concerns, protection, and social capital, because in contrast, when we talk about the social activity, we see that users' motivation is converted and it is converted via specific behavior, yeah, to the social capital. Okay, what else is interesting about this preferential attachment effect? Also, as we expected, those users who are more like they are more familiar, contact is more familiar for them online environment, they see that they also possess higher centrality in city network, which is quite natural, I think. But also interesting that we see that privacy protection also relates to this factor, which means that people just started to be adopted to some risks in time, and they can learn how to protect themselves, which is also good in terms of some policies, privacy policies, and safety communication. Okay, so next slide, please. I think it is a just summarization of what I already said. Maybe, yeah, don't repeat. Just to conclude and just provide with some takeaways, yeah, that we can make from this work and from this model results. That at least in our on our data, in our case, they see that actually if some network features are so strictly intercorrelated, and yeah, maybe it is not so, it wasn't so much information loss if we would just use simple degree measure in our analysis, and maybe as a suggestion, not suggestion, but maybe for further research in the situation, if there is no so much resources to collect such huge social network like city network, probably some local measures as degree could be also useful for assessing social capital. Regarding the question how different dimension of social capital corresponds, we can see that perceived social capital and network capital are irreducible to each other. Yeah, they measure some specific aspects, and they not so much related as we expected, and maybe it's also relate to the way how, on what level they measure it, and discuss it further during the discussion. But yeah, what we found out that network measures not so much predict some perceived ones. Yeah, and next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I thought that. No, takeaway 2, please. Next one. Yeah, and regarding some substantial results, yeah, they can conclude that own motivation for developing social connections associates with high investment in relationship, and then with higher perception of resources, and it also indicates the more central position in city network. And in contrast, privacy concerns and privacy restrictions do not prevent from gaining social capital online. So this result may be more useful for privacy branch of research, but still. Next slide, please. So regarding these are not the only one which are on the slide, so there are many more, but just to point out these several, that the limitation of this work is also they were limited in how they can approximate this offline social ties by online data. We all understand that they could either over or underestimate how many users they can include, like they can reliably include in the network, because there are duplicated accounts, which or anonymous accounts, so we can't check who so yeah, and we can reliably access the residence of users, which were criteria for including them in the network. And second, that they use here the social structural equation modeling approach, which is regression approach, and they know that network data are like nodes in network are dependent to each other, but in regression they need to put independent observation, and here they can say that at least one thing, that they sampled only 0.2% of general population. It's reduced the probability of users being connected, but still this limitation holds, and maybe more some work could be done in assessing like mutually whether or not they assume that they're unrelated to each other, those who were sampled. But yeah, this possibility still could be. So next slide, and here it is. I think I can stop here, and yeah, that's it. Thank you for attention, and we can discuss whenever you have some questions or suggestions, or
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. While everyone is thinking about their questions and they have one, I want to ask about do you have any further ideas of perspectives of this research? What might be done next?
So how to develop this work further?
Yeah.
You mean?
Yeah.
Actually, I have some already some lasting projects. Maybe they're not concerned the network data. So I'm developing this privacy part. So if you're interested, I can tell about that. And one of them actually considers the network component. Oh no, maybe, sorry, it was another data set. So just to say that I have another project which was already made on this data, but on the ego networks. There they try to look in dynamic this how users so how the size of users network change in time depending on their motivation to develop social ties. Yeah, so it is also considers the data which I like, the factors which I mentioned in this work. So yeah, and we found out that then they calculated the data within 1 year, how the size of network has changed, and they realized that actually this intention of users to develop social ties, it leads, so it is related positively to the increase of social network. And it was also accounted to this preferential attachment effect. So we is isolated with motivation effect, and show that those who are actually expanding it.
Okay, thank you very much. We also have questions in the chat. I may say them from Violetta. The first one, why Vologda and what type of Russian cities it represents?
I can consider the question from the chat right now. Yeah, from Violetta, I see. So first, why Vologda and what type of cities it represents? So yeah, of course, we were also concerned to what extent Vologda is representative to other cities, Russian cities, and of course it has some own like specific features. But what was our idea to look at the city that just has some average size in relation to other Russian cities, which does not have any specific migration pattern, which is also might influence the way how people develop their social ties, or it's also influence in their to what extent they integrated in the city. So they try to avoid this thing. They also compared Vologda with other cities in relation to different social, economical features, and concluded that to some extent Vologda would be representative, like middle average city in comparison to Russian city. But of course, yeah, they can specify some limitation here. Yeah, in regard to the specific Volga specific. So I hope that I addressed this one. Second question: how you control, avoid measurement error? Current temporal formal thing. So I hope that I understood this correctly. So as I understood, the question is about how we might be sure that person is actually from Vologda city or not. So correct me if I understood it wrong. But yeah, during the survey we also asked people wherever they reside in Vologda. So of course during this online, so Vologda was a random choice. Yeah, so it wasn't, yes, so it wasn't because we have some attachment to Vologda, yeah. So yeah, how they control, we asked people during the survey whether or not they currently reside in Vologda. Yes. Our respondent could ask an impact on their life, meaning not VK. No, it was only about VK because yeah, they should correspond the communication in Vkontakte specifically to the social ties which people form in Vkontakte specifically. So we do not consider any other Facebook or Telegram. Telegram, I think, was not popular at the time actually, and it is mostly Messenger. So no, only regarding Vkontakte. So Vkontakte was chosen also because to the time of data collection, it was one of the most popular social media, and we also asked like to control to what extent Contact is relevant for our user. We also asked them how frequently we use Contact, do we have important friends inside Contact, so try to control that. Yeah, I see about the time limit, so I will try to speed up. Refusal rate for online survey. So I can't actually tell you the exact numbers right now, but I can say that, of course, they control this dropout rate on each stages. So first we were able to control how people actually are attracted by our targeting invitation. It's one thing. Also, the drop rate. What can I conclude? So I compare it to other studies which used this targeting recruitment, and it was not only compared but even more successful in attracting people. So we can say that it wasn't. So it was representative, like to other results got in other studies. What program was used to receive VK data, and what about the permission from VK owners? Of course, so the first we have ethical approval. So from ethical approval from ethical committee, and it was granted for us because we got the data from Contact only after permission of users. So at the beginning of survey, on the first page, we were the links explaining the survey goals, what data would be collected, and that they were actually the permission was got through this. That if person want to continue, so it means that he or she understand that we can collect some data. For discussion for future. Try to. Okay. So tell Violeta, could you please tell whether I addressed all previous questions? So I hope I covered it all. And for discussion, you try to change portion. Okay. So it's hard to say for me actually how it is compared to the other platforms. And actually after some, I don't know, 2017, I don't remember exactly, but Facebook was closed for data collection. So I'm afraid that they can't actually make such comparison. So to compare it, we need, to replicate the study using the data from Facebook. I mean, to make it more comparable. Yeah. So, but it is unfortunately impossible. Okay. So. About the conclusions. So yeah, about the conclusions. So the conclusions just consider whether or not something that users do on social media contribute somehow to social capital, and we see that actually, yeah, their own motivation matters. Yeah, in regard to this social capital thing, so the main conclusion is like this thing, and that, yeah, the effect maybe reflect the, so it could be to some extent transferred to some offline communication, like offline resources, offline social capital, which is actually quite hard to relate. Okay, so I think.
Okay, thank you everyone for the participation. Sorry for the time restraints, but we need to end the session. Again, thank you very much, and thank you all the participants, and bye. Have a nice evening.